Some cemeteries are a peaceful place of remembrance and rest. Others seem to hold a more ominous feel. An unexplained shadow cast, a creak of a tree in the wind, an uneasy feeling something is watching you from the dark corner or just behind you. Join us as we explore the Gregory Four Corners Cemetery in Monroe, Connecticut, and its most infamous resident, the Witch of Monroe. I'm Chris.
I'm Kathy.
I'm Sean.
And this is Weirder After Dark. You ever been in a cemetery and got that strange vibe, that feeling like something was watching you, that just something wasn't right?
Nothing that pops out of my memory.
I've never had like a spooky feeling or like kind of, something staring at me, but I have had some weird experiences in the cemetery before. So there's a cemetery right by my house and I'll go jogging in it. And one time I was like just jogging around, in the zone. And then all of a sudden there was this like car parked on like one of the lanes coming at me. I moved over to the left-hand side and then all of a sudden the car moved to the left-hand side. So I kind of like stopped. And then it just came up to me and then stopped right directly in front of me.
What?
And yeah, it was so weird. And I was kind of just staring and I was like, yep, this is where I die. Okay. Okay. And then a guy got out of the vehicle, stood out in front of the door and just kind of stared at me. And I kind of was like, stopped frozen, looked at him. And he's just like, you having a nice day? And I was like, yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I was just like, you? And he goes, sure am. Have a wonderful jog. I immediately just turned around and jogged the opposite direction. So that was strange.
I'm not jogging, I'm running.
Yeah.
You just
Exactly.
avoided becoming the next victim of a serial killer.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
It was weird. It's definitely up there in the weird moments that I've
Now,
had.
he didn't have his lights on with a flag on the car with a line of cars behind him, did he?
No.
Okay, I'm just checking.
No, it was not a funeral. No, it was just a really weird day. It was a weird day.
Well, it's interesting because some cemeteries feel very peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
Others get off this weird vibe. If you're from New England, you're most likely familiar with these small little graveyards. Usually they're from the 17 and 1800s. You know the type. You see them on back roads and in neighborhoods, near farms or on the outskirts of town. Maybe you have one on your road, as I do. They are usually surrounded by a rusting black iron fence. They hold a dozen or so gravestones and are overgrown and in disrepair. The stones are usually simple slabs of slate or granite, and some are so faded over time that you can barely read or make out at all the names or dates. There can be a creepy vibe to these places, even today as an adult. When I was an elementary school kid, on the bus, I remember I used to hold my breath when I passed them. As it turns out, talking to friends, this is a common New England superstition passed down from older students to younger students.
I used to do that.
Same.
You did?
Yeah, 110%.
Yeah, for sure.
All the time. And I remember there used to be one in Londonderry and it was so long. And every time my parents would
I
drive
know
by,
exactly
I'm going to die
what
here.
you're
About to pass out.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Chances are you passed one driving around this week. Chances are you didn't even notice it. Chances are you didn't even remember to hold your breath as you passed it. I want to tell you a story that might have you returning to your childhood superstitions to protect yourself from what lies just beyond your perception.
Ooh, I love that buildup.
Yeah.
Ooh. If I do a good job telling this story, you might even want to leave an offering in memory of a restless soul for your protection. But most likely you will not. After all, these are just stories and folklore and silly superstitions. Nothing really to worry about here, right?
I don't know. I feel like I got to go out the door feet first. I got to
Open the window
and now I got to hold my breath.
So many superstitions around cemeteries. So in Monroe, a rural town in Connecticut, there's one of these unassuming graveyards. It's in the Gregory Four Corners Cemetery. It would be very easy to drive right past and pay no mind, other than one oddly placed stone, auspiciously close to the road, and inappropriately arranged on a steep embankment that doesn't seem suitable for a burial site. This one particular stone sticks out from the rest. It is not the size or style of the stone, rather the fact that it's in such an odd spot, almost in the road, on the embankment. It also sticks out because it is so well attended to. You can often find flowers or candles or other small offerings on or surrounding the gravestone. On this stone reads Hanna Cranna Hovey, 1783 to 1859 or 60. Wife of Captain Joseph Hovey.
Or 60?
Or 60.
So they don't know when she died?
They do not know when she died.
Ooh.
Huh.
So as the story goes, Hanna would terrify this town of Monroe in life, but more so in death. Not much is known about Hanna's childhood. She was not from a prominent family, and when she married a well-respected captain, she found a way into the history books. Hanna married Captain Joseph Hovey in 1802. The captain was often out to sea for weeks at times, while his wife, 20 years younger than him, stayed home and took care of the house, just on the edge of town. They never had children, and Hanna was a homebody and was said to be a private person. Hanna was also said to be beautiful and a favorite target of local women who think that she married outside of her league or status. Whether it was a jump in status or her beauty or her being private and recluse, some of the town's women didn't like her. I'm not sure why the town women didn't like a younger, more beautiful woman marrying a prestigious, well-to-do bachelor in town, but you would think they would be happy for her.
Sorry, that's funny. So she obviously got classified as a witch.
Oh, yeah, I don't think the townspeople liked her right away.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a trend. Like,
Yeah.
if you're a good-looking woman back in these times, you're a fucking witch.
Yeah,
Everyone.
don't be pretty, don't be smart, and don't have an opinion.
Yes, and don't be recluse.
And yes.
Yeah, women really were fucked.
Yeah. Because if you're smart, beautiful, you're strong, even though you're all these things and you try to stay away from people, they're still going to come fuck with you.
Which?
Yeah, witch, hanger, burner.
Married to a respectful captain, the people of town might have gossiped about the age difference between her and her husband, or her low status before the marriage. But with her husband's prestigious title of captain, nobody would ever say this to Hanna's face. This all changed one night when Captain Joseph Hovey went for a walk. Interestingly, the captain was said to be known for his sobriety and reason. I cannot confirm this, but I can confirm that on that night, he walked off a cliff near his property and fell to his death.
He just walked off it?
Walked off a cliff and fell to his death.
It was foggy, Kathy, okay? It was a foggy night.
Now, being that this happened on his property where he lived since his childhood, you would think he would have known where the cliff was.
Really foggy.
Really
foggy.
Really foggy.
It seemed a strange and untimely death. Among the townspeople of Monroe, rumors started to fly. Some believed Hanna pushed the captain off the cliff to inherit his property. Some believed Hanna had cast a spell that confused the captain enough to wander off the cliff. Some believed she was so private because she was practicing witchcraft.
Clearly.
I can't think of a single other conclusion.
That's the only thing that makes sense
Yeah.
at this point.
It has to be that.
She didn't love books. Oh, no,
Yeah.
she did. Witchcraft books.
She wasn't just shy or, an introvert. No, she was practicing witchcraft and planning on murdering her husband.
Of course she
I
was.
bet she had a cat, that bitch.
Yes.
Not a cat, but yes. We'll get there.
Her familiar.
Yes. From then on, the people gave her the nickname of Hanna Cranna. Now, Cranna is a Scottish term for a high vantage point or cliff. There was a large Scottish population in Monroe, so it was believed that this was the origins of the nickname. When her husband stepped off the cliff to his death, Hanna became Hanna Cranna. In fact, the cruel nickname is still on her gravestone to this day.
That's sad.
Yeah, that is sad.
Yeah, don't worry. She gets her revenge on these town people.
Good.
Although I am going to say Hanna Cranna kind of slaps for a name.
Yeah.
It slaps, but it's me.
Yeah.
So Hanna, now a widow, remained recluse and a loner. She never remarried or even was rumored of dating. So after this strange accident, Hanna wore a black dress in mourning. But she kept wearing this black dress, really for the rest of her life.
Wasn't that normal, though, for back then? Wasn't that like something that they did? Like widows would wear black?
Well, this maybe was out of grief, but this also maybe because she couldn't afford new clothing or materials. With no family, she inherited the house, but with no income, she was also left in poverty.
Poor Hanna Cranna.
I say poor Hannah.
Hanna.
Bully.
So Hanna had a rooster. She named him Boras. Hanna named Boras after a mythical pagan god. This at least raised some eyebrows in town. Boras, the god, was a purple-winged Greek god of the north wind in winter. Boras, the rooster, had feathers that were abnormally dark when compared to most roosters. Even stranger, it did not crow in the morning like most roosters. Rather, it started crowing at 12 midnight, or the witching hour, if you will. It has been said that roosters that crow at night can be used as a medium to communicate with spirits or dark entities, and it could be a warning of death or bad luck coming to town. This regular midnight serenade of the townspeople fueled speculation that Hanna was a witch, and the rooster was her familiar. Now, if you're not up on your witchcraft lore, a familiar is an animal that has a special attachment to witches and enhances the witch's magical ability. Some believe familiars are demonic spirits that assume the shape of animals in order to serve the witch. We would think of a black cat today, but familiar animals in witchcraft run the gamut from cats to birds to horses. Modern practitioners in witchcraft deny the claim that familiars are demonic entities, but do endorse that dark and light magic both use familiars to enhance magic powers and to help connect to the spirit world.
This could be a hot take. The rooster would just start, crowing at midnight, and people weren't yelling witch; they were yelling bitch. Shut that rooster up! And I think it just got lost in translation over time. So got it.
Yeah, I think we can stop here.
Yeah,
I think we're done.
Solves. I'd be yelling that.
So as the years passed, Hanna became older, and she became more reliant on neighbors for food and firewood. You have to remember, this is the mid-1800s. There was no social safety net or state assistance. So as she aged with no kids or family around to help take care of her, she became more reliant on the people from town. Social norms back then dictated you take care of your neighbors who cannot take care of themselves. This must have caused an uneasy relationship, to say the least. On the one hand, the townspeople were very cruel to her, and some believed she was a witch. On the other hand, they took care of her out of some sense of moral responsibility, to which I just have to say, we need more of that today.
I agree. There's definitely a lacking in community vibe. Honestly, I'm looking out my window at my neighbor right now. I think I've talked to him once.
Yeah.
I should probably go say hey later, right? Just randomly knock on his door and be like, what's up?
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day. I don't know any of our neighbors' names.
No, I don't really want to.
Well, that's the problem with America.
Yeah.
All right, Hanna.
But now, okay, so I might not want to know my neighbor, but like when we used to live in Florida, when we had a hurricane come, all the neighbors came out, helped put up tarp. So might not have known them or their story or hung out with them. But when they needed help, we all grouped together and formed that sense of community.
Yeah, I think our reliance on the government has really destroyed our sense of family and community in a lot of ways. So whether you believed she was a witch or not, Hanna would threaten curses on people who were not generous or helpful to her in her old age, maybe taking advantage of the people's superstitions and rumors in order to get what she needed to get by, or maybe because she actually was a witch. I'll leave that part up to you to decide. Now, to understand this relationship between Hanna and the townspeople, I think it makes sense to provide some historical context. In the 1700s in Salem, Massachusetts, you guys know about the now infamous Salem witch trials that occurred when 20 innocent people were put to death in a mass superstitious religious hysteria. This was one of many infamous witch trials that occurred across New England around that time. By the 1800s, we were in the scientific Enlightenment period, and most educated men saw themselves as logical and reasonable-minded. So at this time in history, educated men were above such myths and superstition. Many thought of themselves as more refined than to believe in curses and witchcraft. So these rumors were most likely whispers and hidden from each other, or at least hidden from the more prestigious men in town. However, several stories of Hanna's supernatural power have become part of her legend. Now, these stories are from the 1800s and not exactly terrifying, but worth sharing with you as we tell Hanna's story. So one tale is the story of a young man who decided to fish in the stream that ran along the back of Hanna's property. When Hanna approached the fisherman, she demanded he leave her property, but he refused. Infuriated, Hanna shook her cane at the trespasser and shouted, "May curses fall upon you and your fishing." It is said that the man never caught another fish in his entire lifetime.
Chris, as a fisherman, is there a worse punishment?
I don't know. I don't catch many fish to begin with, so I don't need a curse. So there's also a story that tells about a farm wife who was renowned in town for the delicious pies she baked. One morning, the wind carried the pie's aroma towards Hanna's home, and she went down to the woman's door and asked for a fresh baked pie. The farm wife offered Hanna one of the smaller pies. Hanna chastised the woman for being too selfish to offer her one of the more generous pies. She was heard uttering the curse as she walked away. "You selfish woman, may you never bake another good pie in your life." It is said the farmer's wife never cooked another good pie. I think we understand Kathy's cooking now. She's been cursed by a witch.
I'm a good cook. Screw you.
I also love the audacity of this woman. She just walks in, she goes, "That's the only free pie you've given me?"
Yeah, I don't get the big free pie. I'm cursing you.
I'm going to try that next time I go. Sir, yeah, can I get a drink? Ooh, can I get a bigger drink? Curses.
Vex. Another tale is of two men who thought it'd be fun to stop their ox-drawn cart in front of Hanna's house and demand a magic show. Hanna complied and promised they would get their wish before they reached the next tree. Before the next tree, the oxen halted and a wheel fell off the cart and the men had to walk home.
She is a witch.
Touché.
Well, yeah.
Whoa.
Not all of Hanna's, quote, magic was vindictive. One summer it was reported a severe drought was devastating farmers in the community of Monroe. Desperate for a solution, one of the farmers called upon Hanna to use her powers to make the rains return. Hanna is said to have promised, by sundown the morrow, your wish will be granted. The next day it is said it poured rain and ended the drought. So not exactly terrifying, but these are the stories and lores that the town people shared about Hanna. It gets a little darker as we move on, though. So in December of 1859, Boris, the rooster, passed away.
No.
So sad.
Yes, Hanna was said to have a bizarre funeral ceremony under the moonlight for the rooster. She wrapped the dead rooster in cloths, she lit candles, and was heard chanting. She held an offering of flowers up to the moon. Hanna at least seemed very close to this rooster. Many people said that the only time they ever heard Hanna cry was on the occasion of Boras's death.
That's actually really sad.
That is really sad. She doesn't have any friends or family, and she has
Hanging
like
out
this.
with a rooster.
Yeah, she's got like this one pet, and it died on her, and that's sad.
Well, after the strange funeral, she was quoted as saying to several neighbors, "Now I will also depart this life."
Even more sad. Is she like depressed as fuck? Or
Yeah,
like, aw.
Is that a witch thing though? That like their
Familiar dies?
Yeah, like their lives are connected to their familiar.
Well,
I don't
this
know.
kind of increased the rumors and suspicion of this magical connection with this rooster, right? Because remember, roosters or familiars can communicate with the spirit world, maybe foretelling of her death. True to her prediction, whether it was supernatural at work or not, the loss of Boras did indeed foretell Hanna's death. In the weeks that followed, many said that Hanna became faded. She rarely went out of her home, and she reportedly looked more frail and sickly.
She's just really fucking depressed,
Yeah,
man. She's not a
she's really
witch.
sad.
Aw.
Show some compassion, people.
So as the Monroe Historical Society tells the story, a neighbor decided to check on her well-being when he overheard a low wailing coming from her house.
Aw, she was crying.
Pale and weakened, Hanna allowed him into her home and told him that the spirits of the great beyond were calling her to the grave. She then gave him very specific instructions for her burial. Quote, "I must not be buried until after sundown, and there must be ample pallbearers to carry me to the gravesite." To these instructions, she also added, "My wishes must be followed exactly, or trouble and vexation shall fall upon you."
Ooh,
That
ominous.
sounds intense.
Yeah.
So local lore claims she was found dead in her doorway the very next morning. Exactly when she died is not known. We do know that Hanna died sometime between December of 1859 and January 1860, as is recorded on her gravestone. We can speculate that these two dates of her death on her gravestone represent the last time somebody saw her alive and the date that somebody found her dead body. So an entire month might have gone by and nobody knew she was gone.
And it was cold, right?
Yeah, it was winter,
Yeah,
right?
it was winter. So if she was like in her doorway, she was outside, it would be hard because decomposition of the body would be slowed down by the frigid temperatures.
That makes sense.
Kind of just want to give her a big pie.
Yeah.
Big piece of pie.
I'm
Yeah.
glad that she had someone, though, that she got to talk to. Hopefully they carried out her wishes. Please tell me they carried out her wishes. Oh, man. Why do people suck?
So at her funeral, as was customary, the pallbearers would carry Hanna's coffin above their shoulders from her home at the summit of Craigley Hill and across town to the Four Corners Cemetery. Dropping the coffin or having any sort of disruption during this process not only disrespectful, but also believed to attract evil spirits. The journey from her house to the cemetery was just under 5 miles, and bringing Hanna's body to its final resting place in the winter involved an ice and snow-filled walk over the hillsides and through the town of Monroe. The men decided it would be easier to use an ox-pulled sled to get her coffin to the burial site. However, several yards down the road from her house, the coffin fell off the sled
Oh, no.
and slid almost all the way back to her house.
No, Hannah.
Hannah's saying, you guys are carrying me 5 miles.
Oh my God, I didn't think of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's almost
she's like,
it's
nah,
cursed.
this is not where this
Not
is not
what I asked
happening.
for.
Yep.
While gravity was surely to blame, I wonder if it made at least some of the men wonder about her last wishes or her ominous warning. Undeterred, the group of men placed the coffin back in the sled and this time used chains to secure it in place. A few of them decided to sit on top of the coffin to make sure it didn't slide off again.
This is awful. Like, this is somebody's, like, body,
Yeah.
and they're just sitting on the coffin.
I so hope this carriage
Me
gets
too.
fucked.
Oh, me too.
So we're not sure if they sat on top of the coffin to make sure it didn't slide off or they just didn't feel like walking the 5 miles. But the strategy worked until they reached the crest of the final hill just before the bend to the Four Corners Cemetery. It was at this point the coffin started to shake so fiercely that the 2 full-grown men who sat on top of it were thrown to the ground.
What? That's so cool. Get it, Hanna?
Haunted by Hannah's last words, "My wish must be followed exactly, or trouble and vexation shall fall upon you," the terrified group decided they would carry the coffin as instructed the rest of the way. Hanna was delivered to her final resting place shortly after sunset, as she had requested, not because the townspeople were respecting her last wishes, but rather the exact timing was because of all the trouble they had moving the coffin.
Ooh, it's like it forced it to happen.
Yeah.
Ooh, eerie.
Yeah, it's a little scary, right? So after the burial, the men started to return to their homes when the group of men were startled by a loud clap of thunder in the cold winter sky, then the sight of a fire blazing on top of a hill just outside of town. They soon realized Hannah's house was engulfed in flames.
What?
Still spooked by the unexplained events of the funeral procession, no one was brave enough to venture over and put out the fire.
They just let it burn?
The fire was said to smolder for days afterwards, and nobody would dare go close to the cursed house. So Hanna seemed to have the last word after all. Or was this the last word? While Hanna was gone, the curse seemed to have endured. We can confirm that her gravestone just will not stay put in the cemetery where it's placed. It has on several occasions since her death disappeared, then reappeared several days later. This disappearing-reappearing act has been reported as recently as 2003. Now, we could easily chalk this up as a few bored teenagers wanting to scare their friends, but other reports are a little bit harder to explain.
Do tell, Chris.
Several times, cars driving around the corner of Spring Hill towards the Four Corners Cemetery after midnight have lost control and crashed the car into the embankment where Hannah's gravestone lies.
Several cars?
Several cars. This has happened so often that some residents refuse to drive by the cemetery after midnight. While this is a blind turn on a back road, the frequency of accidents at this spot has at least some locals second-guessing their route home late at night.
Interesting. But it is a sharp turn.
It is a sharp turn, but
Okay.
there's lots of sharp turns on back roads.
True. It's true.
Also, there's a claim of an apparition of a cloaked, gray-haired woman that has been seen in the wooded area surrounding the burial ground, but also close to where Hannah's home once stood. The ghost often materializes with her hand extended outward, as though she were begging. Oftentimes, these claims are accompanied by a full moon and a heavy, unexpected mist in the night air. One incident in town reports Hanna appeared one night during a full moon at the window of an old farmhouse and asked a young girl sleeping in the room if she could spare any pie for her. In fact, in my research, many residents of Monroe over the years have a story of a brush with the ghost of Hanna Cranna. So some cemeteries are peaceful places of rest and remembrance. Others seem to hold a darker presence. Darker presence that you can kind of feel deep in your bones. A chill on a warm summer night. The hair standing up on the back of your neck, an uneasy feeling, a knowing that nothing is at rest as it should be. Witches and curses are a fantastic claim, and for most people, they would need more evidence than this story can provide to believe in such things. That being said, next time you're alone in the car late at night and you drive past a cemetery, if you hold your breath, I for one won't hold it against you.
Ooh. I love that. I love that tale, Chris. That is so cool.
That's a good one.
Poor Hanna Cranna. Poor Boras.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a fun one to tell because I could see Hanna just being a widow and a recluse and having to beg for food and becoming bitter.
Yeah.
At the same time, I could see the allure of the tale and the folklore.
It is sad that just people are lonely living in this world, and although the community did help a little bit and help take care of her, they also treated her like shit. And
yeah.
It sucks.
Basically, her nickname had to do with her husband dying from falling off a cliff. I mean, that was pretty cool.
Because they blamed her. And then, so it was sort of like a black mark against her. And then they put it on her tombstone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of rude.
And dark.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the tombstone is buried on the side of a hill. It's almost like she was an afterthought. Right?
Yeah.
It's not a real good place for a burial plot.
So Hovey was her actual last name?
Yes.
Hanna Hovey.
Hanna Hovey.
Well, we will end this episode saying your real name, Hanna Hovey. Well, Chris, thank you for sharing that tale. That was really cool.
Yeah, thank you for listening, guys.
Good story.
Yeah. Well, gang, if you enjoyed that tale, Chris will be going ahead and dropping some additional information, some images and stuff backing up the research that he did for this episode. And you can find that over on our Instagram, which is @WeirderAfterDark. Also, we are building some communities out there. So if you want to interact with us or the other members of the gang, go ahead and visit us both on Reddit and on Facebook. Again, you can find that at Weirder After Dark. And don't forget, we are always on the lookout for your stories. So if you've had anything strange, weird, unexplainable happen to you, we want to hear about it. Send those stories to the gang at weirderafterdark.com and we will share them on an upcoming Listener Tales episode. And if you are liking this shit, if you are loving this shit, the best thing that you can do to help us and to support us is to recommend someone that you know and love listens to this podcast. But if you are absolutely dying for more of this shit, what you can do is go ahead and wherever you're listening to this, whatever podcast site you're at, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go ahead and leave a 5-star review and a comment and tell the world how much you are liking this. And lastly, as always, we'll leave you off with this. Remember, it always gets a little weirder after dark.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.